to the Boomerang Podcast. I'm Matt, and I'm here with my good friend, Mark Finchem. Mark, welcome to the Boomerang Podcast.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's
a pleasure.
Yeah, we got a chance to meet at the General Flynn event last week.
Flynn movie.
He's gracious enough to take his time and come on the podcast. So I want to talk a little bit about the election stuff, right? You're in the thick of it. You are the guy. But just before we started the recording, you had mentioned a little bit about that you were responsible for some legislation here in Arizona with regards to gold and silver.
Yeah, I tried to, while I was in the House of Representatives for 8 years, from 2014 to 2022, when I ran for Secretary of State, ran a bill probably, 3 or 4 years in a row to make gold and silver bullion legal tender in the state of Arizona, meaning you could transact business, you could trade fiat currency for something real. Unfortunately, 3 years in a row, either House leadership at the time or the governor vetoed the bill, even after we had gotten assurances that he would sign it. His veto sentence was rather odd. This policy isn't necessary at this time. Okay, we have, and this was 4 or 5 years ago now.
Right.
We have runaway inflation, and anytime you have a fiat currency, if it's not, we got off the gold standard, as you well know, back in the days of Nixon. Was it 1971? The minute that happened, in my view, the U.S. government became insolvent.
Right.
I mean, I believe in real money.
Yes.
And so after retiring from public safety as a DPS officer in West Michigan, I moved to Arizona.
Right.
Worked because I could. I was retired. I did a bunch of different things. Worked as a hotshot on a Type 2 fire crew, putting out forest fires. Worked for Intuit, for their senior manager in charge of the customer experience having to do with QuickBooks. So I was in India a lot. I've just had a really rich life experience. But then I was elected to the House of Representatives as a realtor. I had got my real estate license, had a fairly decent run as a realtor until the left started to assassinate my character with bots and tropes.
How long ago was that?
Oh, gosh. I think I gave my license up 5 years ago.
Okay.
From 2007 to 2018, maybe. So 11 years. Had a pretty decent, robust real estate career. But it gave me an appreciation for real property.
Right.
And as we talk about gold and silver, all it is refined dirt.
Right.
Think about that.
It's true.
That's why it's called real money. It's real property,
right,
that you are able to carry around with you in the form of coin. So it was an interesting thought that somebody had come to me, a lawyer up in Utah came to me and said, hey, we've got this idea to make gold and silver legal tender specie. Like, okay. So in other words, if you denominate it by weight, not by stamped value, then you can easily do the conversion between gold and silver, between paper and gold, however you want to do it. He said, yeah, basically. So I forget the year. It might have been 2018, maybe. That's about right. We ran a bill that turned gold and silver bullion in the state of Arizona. To acquire it does not trigger a taxable event because you are transferring the value of one currency to the value of another.
Right.
So you're moving out of paper and into gold or silver. So because it's a specie of currency, it's like going to the bank and getting euros, or going to the bank and getting pesos, or so there's no taxable event there. And I don't remember if it's 12 or 17 states now either have that legislation in place.
I've heard, yeah.
And predominantly Western states. The United Precious Metals Association is behind that move. And frankly, it benefits all, I hate to use the term dealers, because you're no longer a dealer. in essence, you're a real money bank.
That's the way I look at us.
Okay. So, and that goes for anybody who is handling gold and silver.
Right.
And we've got a plethora of gold and silver houses here in the Metro Phoenix area. So when folks asked me during the Senate campaign here recently, because I'm running for state Senate up in Legislative District 1 up in Prescott and Sedona up in Yavapai County. They asked me, what is the bill you got across the finish line that you're most proud of? And I think that's actually it, because what it does is it protects the wealth that people have stored up.
And it gets out of this bogus system.
Yeah, as you already know, you don't make money on gold when the so-called price goes up.
Exactly.
And I've really had to be on an education tour with folks. It's like, okay, what happens when the price of gold goes up? What's really happening? Few people understand it means the value of the dollar has gone down.
Somebody actually put it to me the other day, I thought in the most succinct way possible. They said, the rise in gold price is the admission of fraud. And I thought it just hit home with me so perfectly, because that's what our dollar is. It's a fraud. The whole system's a fraud.
Yeah. Yeah. But what's driving the IRS nuts is because now you have a number of states that are saying that no, the transfer of one currency to another is not a taxable event. It's simply a transfer of one currency to another currency. So are you now saying that if you are going to transfer a dollar bill into 10 dimes, is that a taxable event?
Right.
It immediately makes the argument.
Right.
So I'm pretty proud of that, because what it's done is it's created a stop loss mechanism. I mean, it's always been there, but people didn't really appreciate until recent days that you're not making money with gold.
Correct.
Or silver. What you're doing is you're freezing the amount of money that you have in time.
Right.
As the dollar continues to lose real value. When we say real value, that's a thing that the government places on the paper.
Right.
Okay.
It's a whole nother conversation.
And the other thing that blows people's minds away is, I said, you think that's real money? Tell you what, pull that out and read the top of it. It says Federal Reserve note.
It's a note of debt.
Well, when you ask them, you know what a note is, right? Well, what do you mean? Well, your mortgage.
Right.
Your mortgage is a debt document.
Right.
So you don't extinguish the debt that you're carrying around until you exchange it for something that's real property. And there are suddenly these aha light bulbs going, I'm carrying government debt in my pocket thinking that it's money, when in reality we're just swapping debt until you extinguish that with something that you acquire, like a hat,
right, or
a car, or a home. Once you have something that's real that you can put your hands on, somebody else is now carrying that debt, and that ends up being an epiphany for a lot of people. It's like, wow,
people are.
So now
that's my conversation with a lot of people, is just having them wrap their head around the fact that it's a currency conversion. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that. It's not you're buying gold at market 2,500 and you're going to sell it at 20,000 and you've just made this big price. It's like, no, it's not the way it works.
No, look around you. You haven't gained a dang thing.
You haven't gained anything.
What you've done is you've created a stop loss mechanism
and got out of the system.
You got out of the system until such time as you need to either get back into the system or you need to acquire something else. So,
right.
The example that I was using when silver was at $18 an ounce, which wasn't that long ago, actually, just a couple of years
ago.
If you went down to, for example, Green Lake County and offered a rancher a silver piece, $18 silver piece, and I'm talking about weight, and a 1 ounce silver round, offered them a 1 ounce silver round, 0.999 pure, for a bale of 65-pound alfalfa hay,
they would take it
in a New York minute.
That's amazing. I think that's what has to happen, is more people have to bring. I think as the system gets worse, I think you'll see more and more people saying, yeah, I'll take that 1 ounce silver coin. Mm-hmm. Right. I think it's got to come from a grassroots movement. That's the way I envision it, is that this system's on its way out.
Well, and it is growing. I've talked to you, say your business is robust, Jim Clark at Republic, a number of different gold dealers around the valley. They're saying, Jim a couple months ago said, usually we're excited about a $1 million or $1 to $4 million month. We just said $1 million a day.
Yeah, I know Jim.
And I'm like, wow. So that is a signal. He says, oh, that's a signal. That's a siren call, is what that is people are bailing out of paper money and moving into real currency in the form of, whether it's bars, as long as you've got a stamped assayed weight and purity,
right?
It's a storehouse of wealth. So I'm very happy about that particular piece of legislation.
Yeah,
and I hope that one day, once we have enough states, I think we'll be able to make the argument to the IRS. It's not a taxable event. You don't get to tax people for converting their money from one form to another.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what the hell happened in 2022? And where are we at now?
Well, we have a bunch of lying bastards that are part of the Maricopa County government, Pima County. These are people who will do anything to maintain power. And since that election, we've learned that Maricopa County not only altered the software that they claimed was certified by the Election Assistance Commission, EAC, then they lied about it. They also posted the machine company, Dominion, posted on
they're criminals.
They're criminals. These people need to go to prison. They need to be on a one-way trip to Gitmo for a non-Article 3 trial. And if people don't know what that is, I'll be happy to explain it. But we've got county officials that ran elections that lied to the court. They lied about testing machines. They didn't test the machines. They tested 5 spare machines, the ballot tabulating machines. And then behind closed doors, in secret, they tested the real machines that they were going to use. They knew damn well that those machines would fail on election day. They knew.
We had our voting right across the street. Total failure.
Yeah, 7,000 ballots rejected every 30 minutes.
So, what has to happen? How do we solve this? It just seems like the courts are just as corrupt as anything else.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed to learn this morning that the Kerry Lake and Mark Finchem v. Fontes et al. Case that we had applied for a writ of certiorari with the Supreme Court was denied, in spite of the fact that we had, I think, 13 or 17 amicus briefs. You almost never see that volume of activity around one particular case.
Right.
And it was from all different states. We had Georgia, Delaware, Joe Biden's home, Arizona, Nebraska, Arkansas, all of these states coming together, writing an amicus brief in support of the notion that if we can't inspect the software and know that the software does not have nefarious code on it, then we don't have transparent elections. And that's where we're at now. We don't have transparent or secure elections. And no matter how much government officials want to lie to the people, until you can inspect that code, until you can see what Ben Cotton found on the Maricopa County machines, you will not have legitimate elections.
And for the audience, what did Ben Cotton find?
Well, a couple things. Number one, the MBS software, which is the machine, I forget what BS stands for, but I think you can imagine. It's the machine behavioral settings, I think is what it stands for.
Right.
In that software, somebody had gone in the back end and written new code and altered. Basically, they turned it into a Frankenstein-like code. It was not certified, yet they represented to the court that it was. Once you alter that software, it breaks. It's like it voids the warranty, if you will.
Right.
Okay. So they did that. Then they had posted in a plain text file on the computers what are called the God keys. These are encryption keys that will permit a user to go in the back end, pull out a database, insert a database, and withdraw without ever being discovered.
Yeah, you were talking about us on another interview you did with the thumb drives that they had where they could do that.
Yeah, they didn't even need that. That's one way to facilitate it.
Right.
But these are Dominion employees embedded with Maricopa County.
Right.
So that is a criminal act, by the way, in the state of Arizona.
Right.
But will anybody ever be prosecuted? Not with this corrupt Attorney General, Chris Mays. Not with our corrupt governor, Katie Hobbs. Kari Lake won. Mark Finchem won. So did Dave Hamaday. But, in the fullness of time, we now know why they could not afford to let us be in office. As Secretary of State, I would have had direct access to inspect the code.
You would have just gotten right down to business.
And the jig would have been up. And our argument to the U.S. District Court in Arizona, dismissed on standing because it was too speculative by Judge Tucci, we warned the court. We know what happened in 2020. The results were altered. The machines were compromised. The code was not certified, even though they claimed that it was, because it was altered. Well, we warned the court the same thing's going to happen in 2022. As late as, I think the court issued sanctions on us on the very day that the machines failed for bringing a frivolous lawsuit. I don't know how that works, but
it was like the next day, right?
It was the same day or the next day the machines failed. So we warned the court, this is what's going to happen in 2022. Right. Now, the fact that literally nothing has changed from 2020 and the machines to 2022, now going into 2024. So I've had a lot of people ask me, so do you have any hope? Yeah, I do. And here's what you need to do. Forgive my salty language, but get your happy ass off the couch. Go vote. Because if you overwhelm the system with the numbers, the system breaks down in its ability to cheat. Now, we've got another case right now in my spare time when I'm not running for office. I'm the executive director of the Election Fairness Institute, located here in Phoenix. We are engaged in research and publication, everything from voter roll cleanup to the process and how governments don't follow process. You may recall that the Attorney General here, Chris Mays, threatened county officials that if they voted to go to hand counting of paper ballots at the precinct level on Election Day, that she would prosecute them criminally. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of things. Yeah, the sheriff. Apparently, the sheriff doesn't understand the law as much as the Attorney General. So, well, it depends on which sheriff you're talking about. I mean, the Mojave County sheriff. I think. There's an interesting thing, and this is why I like the CSPOA. It's the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association. The role of the sheriff, contrary to popular thought, is to protect the civil rights of the people. That's their number one role. They're the only elected law enforcement official in the United States.
Right.
Hard stop.
Right.
Municipal police officers work for the municipality. Sheriffs work for the people. They are there to protect the civil rights of the people. So there are some sheriffs who understand that, and unfortunately, far too few. Many of them don't understand that, and don't understand that it is their responsibility to see to it that election law is followed. So let's fast forward to the case we have right now in front of the Maricopa County Superior Court that deals with Ron Gould, supervisor from Mojave County, suing Chris Mays because she misrepresented the law. The law says that a county may use machines to count votes. Does not say shall. May is permissive, shall is prescriptive. Because the county may use them and may hire a company to provide equipment, if the county says, well, we're not going to renew the contract. Under U.S. Constitution, that's private right of contract. And okay, we're not going to renew the contract. I guess we're going to have to count it by hand. So we're in court about that right now. I don't know when we're actually going to get a court date, but our attorney has written, I think, a very good brief. It's short, sweet, and succinct. The county was within its right, the supervisors within their right and their authority to choose hand counting of paper ballots at the precinct level on election day as opposed to using machines, which, there's this claim that machines are more accurate and they're faster. Really? More accurate? No, because we are not permitted. We don't know what we don't know. Let's put it that way. We are not permitted to do a comparison hand count next to a machine count. And Mark Elias and his front groups have spent hundreds of millions of dollars across the United States to prevent that. That's, in the law enforcement business, we call that a tell.
Does that include FTX?
It includes them all. It includes them all. So if you can't inspect the code, you do not have transparency. And that's the crux of the argument that we're in front of the Supreme Court now.
I mean, first off, how do you solve this? And do we even have an election in 2024? I mean, sure, we're going to all go out and vote, right? But I mean, what do you see happening in the presidential election this year?
Well, you're going to go vote, and you're going to get your little sticker that says I voted, and they're going to pat you on the head, and they're going to say, we'll let you know how it turns out. Go home. Okay. That has worked out so well for us since 2000.
Do you think that we're going to overwhelm the machines so much that it's going to take them 2 months to vote?
I hope so.
To count the votes?
I hope your listeners go to the polls and vote.
They do.
I hope that I'm not a huge fan of early voting because as long as you know that the votes won't be counted until 7 o'clock in the morning on election day. Okay. I mean, I'll yield on that one, but I believe in-person voting is perhaps the most important thing we can do. The Carter Baker report that came out, and I think there was an analysis of the 2000 election. It came out in 2004, 2005. The Carter Baker report essentially told legislators across the land, if you want to corrupt your elections, the first thing you do is you go to mail-in ballots.
I mean, look.
So what do? They go to mail-in ballots.
Yeah.
The dumbest thing that I can imagine that legislators all across America did. And now, of course, the people have been conditioned. It's like, well, I don't want to give that up. It's convenient. Okay, then why bother voting if you're just going to put it in an envelope and mail it through a system that endorsed Joe Biden?
100%.
I mean, that's beyond idiotic.
I mean, I think we saw. Do you know Chris Jersky?
I know Chris very well.
So Chris was the one who found that they were changing the addresses.
Oh yeah,
right.
In mass, electronically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he just so happened to show up to a place where they actually had the old address, address that they switched to.
You're talking about Red Belly Road.
Yes.
So Chris, it's a story worth telling. I'll be really brief. They were looking at mass transfer of individuals from one place to another, and he saw this address come up, Red Belly Road, where I think there were 12 people that on the same day at the same time moved.
Right.
From one street to Red Belly Road. So he goes to the county and it's like, hey, I'm looking on the GIS map and I'm not finding a Red Belly Road. Oh, well, it must just be an error. And so, well, okay, this is GIS. I mean, that would be a coding error that somebody's engaged in. So they went out door knocking. And every one of the people that they contacted said, no, I never moved. I've lived here forever. So you didn't move to Red Belly Road, vote, and then move back to this property? No, that's kind of silly. Well, we're just following up on a couple of things. They get to the last guy that was affected by that, and the guy says, yeah, actually, I got a voter registration card that's got some address, kind of like what you're talking about. So the guy went and got the voter registration card, showed it. The only reason he got it is because the mailman recognized his name and delivered it to the right address. Right. That's a God thing.
That's a God thing.
And when the county officials were confronted with it, they had a, oh crap, oh dear moment. We've been found out. And of course, it's the government speak. Well, it must be a glitch. No, that is called government internal fraud. Machines don't do anything that they aren't told to do.
Right.
So let's be real about this. We've got a racketeering scheme throughout our election system that is designed for power brokers to make sure that the people go through the simulation of an election, but they don't really know the results because they're prevented from seeing it. Right. That is tyranny at the highest level.
100%.
So we're still on a mission to bring transparency and security to elections. To answer your question, are we going to have a transparent and secure election in 2024? I think people like Maricopa County supervisors are going to do everything they can to prevent it. And the people need to be tough on them. Show up at your county supervisors meetings and demand that they go to hand counting. And when they give you this bullshit about, oh, well, it's too expensive. Really? Look at the millions of dollars that you're paying a company that isn't even a U.S. company to manage our elections on insecure machines with software that's been altered. And by the way, what's the cheapest part about getting a dog? Getting the dog.
Getting the dog, right.
The food, the vet bills, all that. What's the cheapest part about buying an election system? Buying the election system. Because then you've got maintenance, you've got the overhead of running it, and, of course, you've also got the litigation fees, which are running into the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. So don't give me this crap about how machines are more cost effective. Right. And if they were so damn good, why do we have to wait 2 or 3 weeks for the results?
Right. It's absurd.
That's called a calculation. That's not a tabulation.
Right.
So we showed on a small scale, Maricopa County, the state GOP leadership election, I think had maybe 2,300. I'm off on my numbers a little bit, but let's just call it 2,300 people voting for leadership positions. And they had multiple races, and they ran it through a simulation of what our actual election would look like. They had enough people. They had the right process. They had digital camera overwatch, so you could see every action that everybody was taking. You had tabulators, and you had callers, and you had people that were supervising the whole thing. They were done in just a little over 60 minutes with 2,300 ballots. So don't tell me that it can't be done, that it can't be accurate.
I saw it in Iowa with Trump.
Yeah.
So you're running for Senate.
Running for state Senate.
Give us some
Legislative
insights.
District 1. That's Prescott, Cottonwood, Camp Verde, Congress. I'm not running for Congress. It's Congress, Arizona. Sedona, Ash Fork. So it's very rural. Moved up there about a year ago.
It's nice up there.
Interestingly enough, I was recruited to run for the job. I was ready to just be the Election Fairness Institute guy, and they said, well, we've got somebody that we need to really replace. So I'm running against the incumbent who has a voting record. He looks more like a Democrat than he does a Republican.
Okay.
And he was the guy that was the chief underminer of the 2020 Senate forensic audit.
Gotcha.
Leaked information to CNN and all the leftist news media. And he's a Trump hater. So, all right.
Let him go.
That's Trump country up there. We did some polling here about 3 months ago. And I believe it's 63% of the people in Yavapai County had already made up their mind they were going to vote for Donald Trump. That's a big number.
That's a big number.
And,
huge number.
4% said that they would vote for one of the candidates. And I'm a statistical tie at about 18, 19% of voters between me and the incumbent. What's really interesting about that is 52% of voters for the Senate race were undecided. Now, keep in mind, the vast majority of these people already voted for me for Secretary of State, and they have voted for Ken Bennett for the state Senate seat. So we read that as they truly don't know who they want to vote for. So they're going to be looking at voting records. And, in the conversations that I've had with constituents all across the district, the argument is that you got a guy with one of the most conservative voting records in the House for 8 years, that would be me, running against a guy who has got a record of voting with Democrats, in fact, rolling the caucus quite often, rolling the Republican caucus and voting with Democrats to pass bad stuff. And then, of course, you've got a guy with no voting record. So it's easy to see
where people
who represents, because past performance is a key predictor of future accomplishments.
Right.
You know what you're getting with me. You know what you're getting with him. you have no idea what you're going to get with number 3.
Well, hopefully people, saw your exposure through the fraud of 2022 and we'll start, backing you through that. What can we expect to see anything more from you and Carrie and Abe? Is it over yet?
It ain't ever over. We're going to be fighting. I'll probably be in this battle until I take my last breath. Because here's the reality. This is not a physical battle. This is a spiritual battle.
Yes.
And there is a spiritual war going on for the soul of this nation. I think that if the people don't wake up and start paying attention at the school board level, I fear maybe it's already too late. You've got school boards that are shoving this transgender crap down kids' throats, that are influencing how laws are made, how laws are adjudicated. We now have a generation of people that are being considered to be judges that are far left radical activists.
I mean, you saw some of those judges being questioned by Congress, and they didn't even know the law.
Well, then you've got a Supreme Court justice who was asked about the difference between a man and a woman.
Yeah,
I'm not a biologist, so I can't really comment on that. In that moment, she disqualified herself to be a Supreme Court justice, but instead she's confirmed by the crazies. So
feels like you almost have to just take down this whole system.
America, buckle up, because we're going to have a rough 6 months. We are going to have a rough 6 months.
Well, thank you for taking the time. Where can people find you?
Well, if they want to support my campaign, they can go to votefinchem.com. That's VOTE, F like Frank, INCHE like Edward, M like Mark.com. If they want to see what the Election Fairness Institute is up to, that's goefi.org. And we're happy to answer as many questions as we can. People are they don't know what to think of me since every one of my emails goes out with my phone number.
Right.
I've had people call me 3:00 in the morning from Australia.
That's incredible.
We support you. How do we send you money? Well, you can't because you're not a U.S. citizen. Oh. But I appreciate your prayers. You can do that to support me.
We have your back, and I'll make a personal donation, and the company will donate something as well.
Well, the company can't, unless, of course, you want to donate to a PAC, and then I can give you the PAC information.
I'll just have the owner make a personal donation.
Okay. But we appreciate every penny that comes in.
Yeah,
we believe in running a very strategic shop. Even though Adrian Fontes and the fraudulent crew that ran the 2020 election for Democrats had, $14 million to spend. We prosecuted ours on about $3 million. That's not bad for a statewide candidate running.
That's great.
And some people would say, yeah, but you lost. No, we didn't.
We didn't.
390,000 votes that were counted that never should have been.
Not only did you not lose, but I think you actually won by a massive margin.
Oh, yeah. If you take the 390,000 votes that either didn't have a signature or weren't compared, Maricopa County is going to say, oh, well, we did a comparison. No, you're a lying bunch of bastards.
Bastards.
You lied. You've lied to the people. You've lied to the courts. You are corrupt, and God will not treat you favorably for what you have done to the people of this state and the people of this nation. That is on the heads of every one of these perjury-speaking supervisors and elections officials in Maricopa County. And they will be judged harshly, I do believe.
I agree. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate you. It was great. Cool. So that's it. Wrap it up. And if you guys want to make a donation, you know where to go. We'll put the links in the description.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, Mark.
VoteFinchem.com.